This year, my number one risk is the Mississippi coastline. Last year's number one pick, again, was Pensacola to Fort Walton. And the reason I'm picking the entire Mississippi coastline this year is because of the fact that I have several cities high up in Mississippi that are high up on the list. And one of them is Gulfport, Mississippi, that gets hit an average of 12.71 named storms when this area gets hit. Also, Mississippi has been hit 3 times in history, 2 years in a row. Mississippi coastline. Also, 3 times in history, this area has been hit when there's been 14 or more named storms. So 1/3 of the time that there's an active hurricane season like they're expecting this year, Gulfport, Mississippi has been hit. So it's a very, very high-risk area. Also, Pascagoula, Mississippi, 12.88 named storms during the season when Pascagoula gets hit by hurricanes. You all remember Hurricane George in 1998, plowed right into Pascagoula, Mississippi. And that was another active hurricane season when Hurricane George hit up there. But anyways, Pascagoula, once again, 3 times in history, this area was hit 2 times in a row. And 3 times in history, it was hit when there was 14 or more named storms. So basically, that's the reason that Mississippi coastline is 2 out of the 3 cities in Mississippi are very, very high up on my list. And they reach all the criteria for an active hurricane season. In fact, the entire northern Gulf has been hit a lot when there's been real active hurricane seasons. And that's why the northern Gulf, I have a very high risk this year. In fact, when you look back at in history here, the year that Camille hit this area, we had 18 named storms that year, folks. We could very well see a hurricane season with 18 storms this year. I mean, if everything is favorable in the Atlantic Basin this year. So if we see 16, 17, 18 named storms, that would put Mississippi at extremely high risk. And, just to also mention, New Orleans, you're right there to the left of Mississippi. You're just west of Mississippi. If a hurricane's heading up into Mississippi and it wavers just a little bit, that puts New Orleans at ground zero. And we all know what's going to happen if New Orleans gets hit by a hurricane. There's going to be a lot of death and a lot of flooding, as that whole entire city will be underwater for the most part. I could see a death toll from flooding this year. This is my big fear this hurricane season, is all the areas that really stand out in my mind this year. Mississippi, Port Arthur, Texas, Norfolk, Virginia, all these areas are just a disaster waiting to happen with flooding. And it really scares me to think what could happen in these areas.